protocol of joining online as Brett is online. Any councillor who's a member of this committee and who's joining remotely must keep their camera on and be muted. If you wish to speak, press the virtual hand on the screen and begin speaking after the chair invites you in. When you have finished speaking, remute yourself. Every effort will be made to ensure that the questions and comments are asked in order of a hand being raised, but we ask that you recognise the complexities involved when we are monitoring both online and in-person attendees. If for any reason a member of the committee is called to leave the meeting, they must indicate to the chair before leaving. Case law is clear. You are not allowed to vote if you haven't heard the full debate. If your screen freezes but you have heard the whole debate, you must use your discretion over whether to vote. However, if you did not hear the whole debate, then you cannot vote. Okay, you're asked to turn on your camera when presenting reports or responding to questions. Please turn them back off after your item is finished. Could I just ask if recording has started? It has. Thank you very much, Ellie. Okay, we shall start. Prynhawn da, croeso I cyfarfod diolch I chi gyn am dod. Good afternoon and welcome to today's Planning, Regulatory and Licensing Committee meeting of Wednesday, 27th of February 2024 at 2 p.m. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. Can I ask Democratic Services if there's any apologies been received? None received, thank you very much. Agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and prejudicial interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government and Finance Act 1992 relating to the Council Tax, the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution and the Members' Code of Conduct. Members are reminded that they must identify the item number and subject matter that their interest relates to and signify the nature of the personal interest. And B, where members withdraw from a meeting as a consequence of the disclosure of a prejudicial interest, they must notify the chair when they leave. Are there any members who wish to make a declaration of interest on any of the agenda items being discussed today? Okay, nobody's indicating. Agenda item number 3. This item is referring to the fact that a planning and regulatory fact-finding meeting took place on Monday, the 5th of February, as you will be aware, and for the benefit of anyone viewing this video in the future, the fact-finding meeting was called by a ward councillor in relation to concerns raised during including parking at this location. Numerous questions were asked at the meeting, with many of them being referenced within the report for this agenda item. Before we go on to the next agenda item, which is the main report, does anyone wish to raise anything?
Someone needs to move the minutes.
Okay.
And vote them through.
Councillor Clive Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. On page 7, which is the last paragraph of the minutes for the site meeting, I've queried what's stated in there with Craig Watkins, the planning manager, and what it says there, the engineering highways officer then responded and advised that the objection from his department was in relation to the parking, as if the majority of people had cars and there were only 2 ordinary parking spaces. This could mean that 13 cars could be parked on the road, which would require 70 meters of road space. Anyone reading that, i.e. the public and constituents living around this, would think he's referring to only 13 people trying to find spaces around there. But I think, having spoken to Craig, that there could be some slight alterations in that, which will explain the situation.
Chair, because obviously someone needs to move the minutes, second the minutes, and approve the minutes. So are you suggesting that there be an alteration to the minutes?
Yes.
Right? In which case we'll need to know what those are, and then someone can move the minutes subject to that amendment.
Yeah, there's a point of clarification. I think there was a little bit of confusion due to the level of noise on the site visit. I think what it needs to state is where it says the objection from the department is in relation to parking, it needs to be a full stop. And then it needs to reflect to there was a discussion then where an example was given where if there were only 2 ordinary parking spaces, this could mean that 13 cars could be parked on the road and require 70 metres of road space. It was an example given by the head of engineering just to sort of highlight the issues.
And that's acceptable, because if it's left where it is, it gives the wrong impression to the public as to what was actually said there by the engineering highways manager. Yeah, thank you, Craig.
Subject to that amendment, then, would someone like to move the minutes?
And I'll second it, Chair.
Councillor Clive Tubby has moved the minutes, and Councillor Clive Jones has seconded the minutes. And if we can have a raise of hands, if you're all in favour, and if Councillor Brad Carter as well, lovely, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much. That has passed. Agenda item number 4, P/23/0196, former Merthyr Tydfil General Hospital, High Street, Merthyr Tydfil. The report author is Judith Jones and the case officer is Adam Foote, and I believe Adam will be giving a brief summary of the report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Members will recall this application was reported to committee at last month's meeting, where a site visit.
You need to use my quote. You need to use my quote.
The primary reason for the site visit being called was to discuss the parking provision, its impact upon the local area and highway network. Since the last committee, that site visit has been undertaken. A number of objections have been received in relation to this application, primarily in relation to car parking and the impact that the development will have upon the existing highway network and on-street parking availability. As this application was presented at last month's meeting, I'll recap the main points of the proposal. This application seeks consent for the conversion of the building into 30 apartments. The proposal includes the demolition of the rear section of the building to be replaced by a 3-storey extension with a contemporary design. The front and primary elevation of the building would be retained. The site is within the settlement boundary where there's a presumption in favour of development and the efficient use of land is encouraged. Additionally, the land meets the definition of brownfield as defined by Planning Policy 12, which states should be used in preference to greenfield sites. The site falls within the town centre conservation area, with the building being identified as a landmark building of historic significance that makes a positive contribution to the amenity and character of the area. There is no in-principle objection to the development of the site for residential purposes, and the development would provide a viable future for an attractive landmark building within the town centre and conservation area. All remaining considerations, including ecology, design and residential amenity, have been considered and are deemed to be acceptable. Access to the site would be gained via the existing vehicular access point. 6 parking spaces are proposed within the front forecourt of the building, with the arrangement allowing for vehicles to enter and exit the site in a forward gear. Additional secure cycle parking is also proposed. When applying the adopted parking standards to this scheme, the proposal represents a shortfall. It's important to note that the parking standards are guidance only, and since their adoption in 2008 have been superseded by both Planning Policy Wales, now in its 12th edition, and Future Wales, both of which promote lower levels of car parking or car-free developments in appropriate locations. Given the highly sustainable location of the application site, its proximity to the town centre amenities and public transport links, it's considered that the parking provision as proposed is acceptable and justified. The current image as shown on screen shows the proposed layout for the site with your parking provision in the front. You can also make out the outline of the existing building and the proposal. So the proposal will result in the building being set back within the site away from the extremes of the site boundary. Wait for it to update a second. The current image on site shows that in more detail, so you can compare the existing and proposed footprints. This shows the proposed layout for the building. And here are some images of the proposed elevation. So you'll notice the contemporary design for the rear portion of the building. And this next slide shows the extent of demolition in comparison to what is proposed. On here, you have the front elevation to be retained and the proposed rear elevation. So in conclusion, the proposal would provide a viable future to a landmark building of local historic significance, which would result in a visual improvement to the existing site and provide much needed housing in a sustainable location. It's acknowledged that the parking provision as proposed is limited. However, it's considered that the sustainable location justifies this level and that the proposal accords with the aims and objectives of national planning policies, which seeks to facilitate the modal shift away from private motor vehicles to sustainable and public modes of transport. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'm going to hand over to questions from members, if that's okay. So we've got Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. On the plan, could you go back to the plan of the whole site? So a few back. No, go back again a bit further. Yes, that one there. At the site meeting, what was stated is that there would be 6 spaces there. And what was also stated is that 4 of them would be for disabled, which means there would be only 2 internal spaces for 30 residents and visitors. Where you see where the car parking is allocated in the front there, and to the one side there's a grass area. Having gone back there to acquaint myself with the layout of the front there are 3 trees there. One right in the very corner by the junction with Alexandra Road. But if the other 2 trees, frankly, were taken down, in my view, there would be more extra space for a few more internal spaces. And I really don't understand, Chair, why we've allocated 4 disabled spaces. Is there a policy which lays down specifically that there's got to be X number of spaces, disabled spaces, when you've got, I don't know, how many units of accommodation?
Oh, sorry. So with this has been designed in accordance with the appropriate standards for parking provision. So for a unit of this size, providing that number of units, that is the number of disabled spaces that we would expect to see provided on site.
Well, what I and my colleague Councillor Louise Minnitt-Vokes is asking for is that when you have further discussions with the developers, that you will reiterate this particular point, that 2 ordinary spaces is totally inadequate for 30 units of accommodation there. We're going to have and I'll come on to that later on with questions and comments. There's going to be a bad enough problem trying to find accommodation for cars outside the curtilage of the old General Hospital, leave alone the issues inside. So we could alleviate that by, albeit a small amount, for extra internal spaces. I think that would help the situation. Can I confirm that you will have further discussions with the developers?
Yeah, as the site comes forward, obviously pending today's outcome, then yeah, we'll have those discussions with the developer.
Okay, thank you. I'll go on to my other questions. I asked a number in the site meeting.
Oh, I think
But-
they've tried to call me. Did you need me for anything?
Can we make sure people online are muted, please?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it's the second time it's happened. If it happens again, can we, what's the policy? Get them to leave the meeting? Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
And while being on that subject, I thought whoever's on there should be able to be seen. Or is it? It doesn't apply to members of the public.
No, I don't think so.
Is that correct? It doesn't apply to members of the public. Right. Okay. Originally in the local development plan, this site was allocated for 20 units of accommodation. Now, with the 30 units proposed in this application, on what grounds is the developer stating that less than 30 units is not financially viable? And you don't see the word financially viable until you're well into the report, because what it says before that, and it's repeated twice before that, is the word viable. But it's only when you get deeper into the report, you see the word financially viable. So I presume what the developer is saying is that building in less than 30, they won't be able to make a profit.
Yes, so given the nature of the site, the existing condition of the building, and taking into account land values in the area, 30 units is what is required to make the site viable. As members will be aware, this site has obtained planning consent previously for development for a lower number of units that was never came forward due to the financial viability of the site. Therefore, this is what is deemed to be required for it to be able to be implemented.
So, Chair, the question of 20 units accommodation, which, as I say, was in the original local development plan, and I know planning legislation seems to be changing by the day, leave alone the week. Did you at any one time have discussions with the developer about 20-ish units being there? It's on, you'll find.
I can't turn it off.
Oh, all right.
Right, am I coming through? Yeah. Just a point as well, in terms of fee figures in the local development plan, the numbers are indicative for the site. I believe the previous scheme was 23 units that have permission. And they were prepared. Those figures would have been prepared and calculated back in sort of 2018. So I think a lot has evolved since that time. Like I said, the cost of construction and things have gone up, and given the difficulty that there's been with this site to bring it forward over the last 20 plus years, I think the number that's been arrived at, I think we are comfortable with in terms of the recommendation we've got here with a scheme that that complies with board policies in the local development plan.
Okay. Also in the report, it refers there to 44 cycle parking spaces. How many residents do you think in this planning application do you think would have cycles and use them regularly?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be able to give an accurate answer to that. I think it's more about providing an appropriate number of provision to encourage that. So the wording from Planning Policy Wales is to the aim is to facilitate the modal shift away from private motor cars to sustainable modes of transport. So it's about providing a secure and sufficient number of cycles, cycle storage facility, so that residents would be able to avail of that. But I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate number of how many residents would actually own cycles, but it's about having that facility available to residents.
I couldn't determine from the plan, Chair, but how much space does the 44 cycle spaces take up?
On the top image of the front elevation, if you see the sort of double door space, it's to be provided within that space.
All
And
right.
if I go back, if it's underneath, and if I go back, it's shown.
It's the old archway that's still there. is it?
yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. So just going through there, there'll be 44 spaces for
Cycle spaces.
bicycles. Okay. My other question is under the heading of highway safety and parking, which you'll find on page 15. And if you go to the 4th paragraph down, and I'll read this whole sentence, and I quote, "It is considered likely that some parking may occur in the surrounding streets based on various observations by members of the planning committee." And this is the important part as well. It is considered that there is capacity for parking in the surrounding areas. Could you tell me what evidence are the planning officers for this assumption?
Yes, so the application is supported by a transport assessment, which has identified that there's some capacity within the surrounding area, and the highway network has capacity to accommodate them. And also it's been observed by various members of the planning department at numerous times of the day and whilst undertaking site visits.
And in that statement, how many spaces did they say would be available? Because they've obviously, you've paid this organization to undertake this report.
We haven't, no, it was the applicant has
right.
paid them, and it's been submitted in support of the application. What I would say, just as part of a perhaps more anecdotal response, is that during the site visit that we undertook, and appreciate that was during the daytime, but there were a number of people at present at that site visit. Lots of people travelled by car, and everyone parked with relative ease in the immediate surroundings. So I think, you know, that correlates with the observations of the planning officers who have been undertaking numerous site visits at, like I said, different times of the day since this application has been submitted, and also accords with the transport assessment that was undertaken.
So my last question, Chair, because I know, Adam, you would have gone up there and walked around the whole area. Do you accept that there is no available parking in Gweldergarth? You've got the avenue opposite, which doesn't have a road in front of it, just a pavement. Those people, if they haven't got garages, some of them have, the back of the avenue, would have to park in Gweldergarth. The whole area from the bottom of Gweldergarth right up to, I think it's 45, they are fighting for places to park there, and particularly when they come home from work. So there's absolutely no available space there. Do you accept that the only space that people could park there, relatively near to the Old General Hospital, is the bottom of Alexander Road? And it has been mentioned that they can park in Heritage Close. But in Heritage Close, that is a small estate where there's parking spaces being allocated for the residents and particularly not for anybody else.
Yes, so I think the closest available spaces are Alexandra Road, particularly along the side of the application site. You know, you don't have houses directly facing onto this section of highway. So I think, you know, that would, yes, you are correct, that is the closest available section that people would, you know, most likely, if they have a car, look to utilize.
Sorry, there is one last question. Do you think, Chair, that all 30 residents will have cars?
No, I would say it was unlikely. I think, you know, basing this on previous appeal decisions as well, where inspectors have found that the availability of car parking facilities does inform people's choice with respect to whether or not to, take a lease or a, ownership of a site. I would not expect every resident of that building to have a private car, particularly given its proximity to the town centre and to public modes of transport. Again, this is really what the national policy now is sort of seeking. It's for the efficient use of land within sustainable locations, the reuse of brownfield sites, and to have high density developments in appropriate areas so that the maximum number of people can avail of those facilities within close proximity.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Councillor Clive Tubby.
I was just going to ask, no matter how many disabled parking spaces you've got there, who's going to enforce it? Because it won't be owned by the council, the building, will it?
The sort of allocation of spaces as part of the development would be something that the developer themselves would have to control through permits or those sorts of issues. Be private again, but it wouldn't be the council responsible.
Is that it, Clive? Yep, thank you very much. Councillor Brian Carter online.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question for myself. In terms of the disabled parking, you mentioned there's 4 spaces. Now, is that the 4 spaces, which is the legal requirement for a 30 room bed in them? Does that make sense? Is that the maximum or the most you've got to give or the minimum you've got to give?
Yes, so the parking spaces that are shown accord with the relevant guidance for a building of this size. So with taking into account the number of units proposed and the bedrooms, the 4 spaces accords with the associated guidance.
Okay, and the 2 remaining spaces is exactly the same for the remaining properties then, is it? The minimum requirement?
So with
or there is no minimum requirement?
there's not.
So the only minimum requirement is for disabled spaces?
You do not have to provide car parking spaces of a general nature.
But you've got to provide a minimum for disabled.
Yeah, all the parking standards, as Adam said earlier, are guidance, and the figures tend to be up to a maximum. I think in this case, the disabled spaces have been prioritised in order to meet a standard that is in line with the figures that we have, and then the regular spaces have come afterwards. Then.
So Craig, what you're telling me is the 4 spaces have been allocated to the maximum for disabled for that size property.
There is the maximum. I think it was a matter of trying to get as many disabled spaces on as possible while still having some provision for regular spaces as well.
Okay, I just needed some clarity. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Councillor Brian Carter. Councillor David Isaac.
Yes, thank you. Was there or has there been any consideration to creating an additional parking area only a few metres away on brush scrub land below what was the old county school grounds?
No, that does not form part of the application site, so that has not been considered.
Yeah, it would alleviate the parking on the streets, and it would actually tidy up what is an unsightly area.
No, that doesn't form part of the proposal, so that hasn't been considered.
Right, okay.
Thank you, Councillor David Isaac. Any other members with questions? Councillor John Thomas.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. With regard to the parking, Craig, again, it is obviously that's the main topic. On the entrance into the site, at this moment in time, you've got the flats opposite, and they park all their cars in that entrance and right on the bend of the building as well. Can you guarantee that the developer will insist on permit parking in there? Because these people could go in there and the people in the flats ain't got nowhere to go. They're out on the road or wherever.
I think if they were parking within the site boundary, within the allocated spaces, then that's something the developer could look to enforce themselves. Obviously, if they were parking sort of on the entrance, around the entrance, on the highway, then it will ultimately be a matter for the police then in that matter.
Yeah, but with the police at the moment, they don't enforce anything at the moment because there's barriers there. They sort of on the entrance, they're in off the road type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in terms of the current situation at the moment, obviously the front of the site will look different as well. It'll be tidied up. The sort of, as you can see in the elevations, it'll enable itself to be enforced more. At the moment, obviously it's seen as a vacant site.
Yeah,
so I think it's when hopefully it is developed.
So saying this goes through this afternoon now, could you sort of put in and say to the developer, you will have to enforce or allocate permits to the people who've got cars, if there's any, to stop residents from outside parking in there?
I don't think we'd be able to do that sort of directly at the moment. However, this application is not directly from a developer that's going to sort of carry out the scheme themselves, but when the sort of actual developer does come forward, it is a matter that we'll be able to discuss with them and
something into the contract type of thing
somehow, yeah, in the future.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Thomas. Any other members with questions? Okay. Any members with comments? Councillor Clive Jones.
If the committee and yourself, Chair, can bear with me, because I've got more than the usual number of comments to make. I've lived at and slept the issues with the old General Hospital for nearly 20 years when I was first elected in May 2004 for the Park Board. I've lobbied for those 20 years for the old General Hospital site to be developed. And in fact, the building has been empty for 22 years since it was originally used after the hospital itself was vacated there for residential accommodation for elderly people. Because of the problem at the time, they had to leave there because of the standard of care, and it's been empty for 22 years. Now, all these years later, we have a proposal for 30 units of accommodation. My constituents living in the streets, houses close by, have put up with untold problems of antisocial behaviour for those last 22 years. Of course, everyone, including myself, all we want is for this site to be developed. Going back to one of my original questions, the local development plan stated that 20 units of accommodation would be suitable, but we have found that this developer is saying it is impossible to develop the site unless it is financially viable with 30 units of accommodation. Now that leaves a problem of where, frankly, all the cars are to be parked. As I previously stated, there's no space in Gwyl de Garth and with the avenue opposite. That leaves Alexandra Road. There's a few spaces at the bottom of that street and Heritage Court, where the parking spaces are there for the residents in Heritage Court itself. 6 internal car spaces in front of the old hospital is totally inadequate. And in a meeting with the planning manager and the principal planning officer this week, I and Councillor Louise Minute-Vokes have asked them to speak to the developer about putting more than the 6 internal spaces. And I hope that can be achieved. The current thinking of civil servants at the Welsh Government is that no one, frankly, should have a car. That's what, in fact, what they are saying. Well, the real, we live in the real world here. And until you get public transport, which is available at all times, is frequent, is reliable, and is cheap, until that happens, people will want to have cars. Going back to as far as the 44 cycles are concerned, all I can say, Chair, is good luck with that one. As I've just expressed, there are problems with coordinated public transport, and I firmly believe that until something like that happens, people will need cars, specifically, amongst other things, to get to work. I and Councillor Minute-Vokes are deeply disappointed that there are 30 units in this plan, and we're even more deeply disappointed that more people with cars will be there trying to find parking spaces which are not there. In respect of this application, I am damned if I do and damned if I don't. But with all the history that's happened here, with all the problems that we had here, 3 owners later, 1 previous application which collapsed, this is the only planning application for development we've got in front of us. So I would and will be voting for this development, albeit I believe that it is a serious problem with all the cars people will be trying to park there. And that's the reason you've had 12 objectors, because my understanding is in those 12 objections, they were all relating to the serious parking problem, which will accrue as a result of this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Any other members with comments? Okay, I just got one. It's just a very short one. I think we all appreciate the difficult position you were in. Clive, you've been working on this for 20 years, and with Planning Policy Wales, Future Wales, who are both advocating for lower levels of car parking in developments, you're left in a position, as you said, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. I just hope that residents understand the predicament you're in if this does go through today. Okay. Okay, there's no further comments from members, so we are going to take it to a vote. Yeah. So we need someone to propose it. Councillor Clive Jones. Okay, and seconder, Councillor Clive Tuvey. We haven't got the facilities to vote electronically, so we will vote by raised hands. So if we raise hands for all those in favour. Okay, inside it's unanimous. Councillor Brent Carter in favour as well. That is unanimous. Thank you very much, and it has been passed. Okay, agenda item number 5, P/23/0234. This is 1 Church Street in Merthyr Tydfil, CF 470BA. The report author is Judith Jones. The case officer is Rebecca Owens, and David Cross will now give a brief summary of the report.
Thank you, Chair. So this application relates to an end terraced property situated on along Church Street. It was previously used as offices. Permission is now sought to change the use of the building to a HMO to accommodate up to 6 persons living together with shared facilities, including kitchen, living, toilet, bathroom areas, facilities. There would be some works to the exterior of the building, which would include some minor alterations to some of the windows and repairs to the roof. No objections were received from consultees. However, as a result of the publicity exercise, there were 2 letters of objection. The concerns have been summarised in the report, which highlights matters in respect of the number of HMOs already in the area, potential problems with tenants, concerns with antisocial behaviour, its proximity to a nearby dance school, and the capacity for parking in the area. The principle of the development is acceptable given its location within the settlement limits. The site is also situated in a highly sustainable location, being within the town centre and close to, with easy access to public transport, local services and facilities. The development would not have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the area, given the limited works that would be undertaken to it, nor is it considered to give rise to a significant impact on the amenities of neighbouring properties. It's acknowledged that the existing property does not benefit from dedicated off-street parking. However, given its location within the town centre and taking into account its previous use as offices, it is not considered that the lack of dedicated parking presents a sufficient reason to refuse this proposal in this instance. Whilst residents have raised concerns that the proposal would exacerbate antisocial behaviour in the area, this in itself cannot be attributed solely to HMO developments, nor is it certain that this proposal in itself would be the reason to exacerbate such concerns in the area. It would normally, however, be a matter for other regulatory bodies such as the police or environmental health to address some of those concerns regarding antisocial activity. So accordingly, it's recommended in the report that the application be approved, subject to the conditions set up on pages 32 and 33. So just to go through a couple of slides on this. The plan on the left here shows the location of the property in relation to the town centre, and these just illustrate the current layout at the site at the moment. So access to the front, and there's a bit of a rear garden area. Again, this just shows the town centre's the main high street there is just to the west. So this is the current arrangement of the property. It's a fairly large property. It's got a number of offices there with reception area and storerooms. So that would have suggested that the number of people would have been operating from that initially as part of a business. As you can see, the proposal is to convert the upper level into 4 bedrooms, with 2 bedrooms created on the ground floor, with shared facilities then including the kitchen, living room and a couple of bathrooms. And this just gives the view of the property as it stands within the street, and a bit more in context of the street itself. So as you can see, parking, the town centre is at the end of the view there. You can see parking is limited. That's acknowledged, but as I say, given the location of it within the town centre, this is something that persons who do not require a vehicle or do not own a vehicle would be suitable to occupy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, David. And we're going to questions from members. Any questions from members? Councillor John Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The first question, Dave, is in the proposed development on the first paragraph there, it says the submitted plans indicate that the basement and attic rooms would remain locked and inaccessible to residents. Do you think, or have they mentioned that they could develop them into rooms at a later date, or are they going to be closed off for good, type of thing?
It's my understanding that the intention is to close them off for however long, but it's not specified within the plan. So if they wanted to increase the number of units, because the property's already at 6, If they were to go above that, it would actually change the use class of the property. So a HMO falls within a C4 use, but that's up to 6 people. So anything more than that, it would what we would term sui generis. So in other words, it falls in a class of its own outside of the usual, so that it would need permission to increase the number of residents there.
Right, okay. One further one, if that's all right, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to bring up, did we, you probably say, well, it's not a planning consideration, but like, it's not rocket science to know who's going into these type of premises. Did we take into consideration the dance school that is by the side of it? Because these children are like from the age of 4 up to the age of 16, who use it more or less every evening after school. So, you know, it could be a bit intimidating for those families and are using that.
HMO, in essence, is a residential use, so we have no control of who would live in there.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to then say, well, it's going to be full of, you know, intimidating people. You know, it could be young people that are quite nice and friendly and maybe even use the dance school themselves.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to do that. But the applicant is D2 Propco, so they would, I presume, manage the potential occupants of the property, and if there were issues, that, you know, it'd be for them to then sort of try and address that.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor John Thomas. Councillor Malcolm Colburn.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, on page 26, under the proposed developments, touching on what Councillor Thomas referred to earlier about the loft attic space in the basement. One of the items is the first bullet point, works repairs to the roof covering. So what happens if there's a problem with the roof?
Well, it's just repairs to the roof, I believe. So, you know, when you say there's a problem with the roof, what do you mean?
Well, it's saying that none of the following works will be undertaken. Repairs to the roof covering. So if there's a problem with the roof covering, how do they go about repairing that?
I think that means as part of this proposal, there's no works at the roof covering.
Yeah, some external alterations to the building are also proposed, which includes replacement of the rear ground floor windows and the blocking up of the other windows. Sorry, I may have mentioned earlier that there was works to the roof, but yeah, this is, I think this is to do with the ecological implications, you see. So what they're saying is that actually there wouldn't be works to the roof to avoid any potential impact on bats.
Right. So, but if the roof subsequently leaks, they will be able to repair it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Malcolm Colburn. Councillor Clive Jones.
Well, it's to follow up the question that Councillor Colburn just said, because the wording is, it has also been confirmed that none of the following works will be undertaken. But there's a list there, so it seems to me that there is work to be done, but the owner is saying, no, I'm not doing them. Have I read it incorrectly?
I think the first paragraph in the proposed development is just indicating that there are some external alterations to the building, but that's just in relation to some of the windows.
Yeah.
What it's confirming then is that there won't be any works relating to the roof or the features around it, you know, including the attic, barge boards and things like that.
Right. So
the intention there is because obviously if there were bats there, that may have an implication. Yeah. I think this is just to clarify that the development wouldn't have that impact.
So the way it's worded could be taken both ways. What he was saying is that in the event of work being required there, that would be done. But that's not the way it's worded.
If there's a need to do repairs later on down the line to the roof, we wouldn't ordinarily have much control over that. You know, you're entitled to maintain your property generally.
And one other question, D2, I think the owner has developed other properties within the county borough. In your discussions with them, because in the one that I saw, they had cameras all around there and inside the property. Do you know if that's the intention here? Because obviously, as highlighted by Councillor Thomas, there could be a management problem, and it's for the owner to deal with any issues that's in there in the first instance.
It's not specified in the application report that there will be specific number of cameras or where they'd be located, but that is a mechanism that is used to help, you know, address any sort of behavioural issues if that were to occur, and it just allows the management company to sort of identify those concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clive Jones. Councillor John Thomas.
Oh, yes, it didn't
No
go
problem.
came back on, yes.
Councillor David Isaac.
It sounds petty, but it's 1 Church Street, Merthyr Tydfil, whatever. I've had one resident ask why they changing number 1 Church Street, Pindarren, into an HMO. Is there any way we could have put 1 Church Street, Merthyr Tydfil, Town Ward, or something like that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of frightened or concerned people thinking that it's going into Church Street, Pindarren.
I think the address is, well, the address is specified by the applicant anyway on the application form, and that's checked through our sort of database of addresses. So that is the address for that site.
Yeah, because we've got I don't know how we're going to fix it if we can fix it, because we've got parcels going to Church Street, Pindarren, when they should have gone to Church Street in, yeah. So I don't know, but
Yeah.
is there some way of putting it like Town Ward or?
Yeah, I think for the purpose of way the addresses are presented, that is the address. Town Ward doesn't form part of that postal address, but I take your point that, you know, it can be confusing.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor David Isaac. Any other members with questions? Okay, nobody's indicating. Any councillors with comments? Councillor John Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Firstly, in the report, I can't believe that the police have objected to this property, because every other day they're in attendance for issues which are going on in that area. You know, with the old hospital site, for one, which is up the back, up around the synagogue area, we're having problems every day of the week. And I can't believe that they've objected to this. But anyway, you know, when this property was brought to the attention of the ward members, asking for our observations, my fellow ward member, Councillor Andrew Barry, sent to our housing department a very detailed and strong email explaining our concerns. I don't see anything that they reported from us in this report. At the opposite end of the street, we have a synagogue which is due for total refurbishment and renovation, and turned into a Jewish museum. The number of tourists we will have coming past this area, well, who knows, in the thousands probably. And this could be a very intimidating area for this town. To this end, Chair, as a town ward elected member, I will be voting against the officer's recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor John Thomas. Any other members with comments? No. Okay, nobody's indicating. Before we go to the vote then, can somebody move the report? Okay, Councillor John Thomas moves the report. Councillor Clive Tuvey seconds the report. Again, we don't have the facilities for electronically voting, so if we can raise hands for all those elected members that are in favour. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 8, and Councillor Ben Carter 8. Yeah, 8 out of 9. So that's all in favour. So that's passed.
Against.
8 out of 9, I said, yeah. And just to, as Gary said, just to confirm that Councillor John Thomas voted against. Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item number 6 is P/23/0247 St John's Lodge, The Grove, Merthyr Tydfil, CF 47 8YR. The report authors Judith Jones, the case officers Marlene Ferreira, and again, David Cross will be giving a brief outline of the report. Yeah, can do. Yeah. Okay, to save time, we're going to go straight to Councillor Clive Jones.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I move that we have a site meeting here? There are, at the last count, 20 objectors to this proposed development. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask for a site meeting because it's definitely required.
Can I ask for clarification, Councillor Jones? You've asked for a fact-finding visit. We do need the reasons as to why you're asking for one.
Well, there's a number of them in the report. I won't go through all of them, but the view of all the residents around there is that this property, originally one house, 5-bedroom property, which has been worked on internally for quite some time, which the public living there couldn't understand. But if you alter a property inside, it doesn't require planning permission, but the building control officers were involved. And with 3 flats there, with a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom, you will increase the number of occupants there, on my conservative assumption, so somewhere in the region of 9, 10 or 11. And it's the residents around there are concerned what was and what is proposed is going to be vastly different. And they believe that there will be problems occurring based on what the planned development is. And I don't have to repeat this, but I will. There, with 3 being split into 3, there'll inevitably be more vehicles there. And that's another issue as well. This is slap bang in the middle of a sought after residential area. I mean, one of the objections was that they felt that this would be an Airbnb, but I think that's been dismissed as being the case in the report. So there are the reasons for that. But it's listed in there what the 20 objectors are talking about.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Councillor Jones. I just needed to be sure that there were planning reasons as to why we need finding this.
Well, yeah, amongst that, there definitely are planning considerations.
And which officers would you consider would be appropriate?
In this case as well, I think we should ask for a representative from the Highways Division to be in attendance there.
Okay, so Councillor Clive Jones, you've moved that.
Moved the site meeting, yes.
Do we have a seconder for a site meeting? Councillor John Thomas has indicated. Again, we're going to take it to the vote by hand, if that's okay. So all those in favour of site visit, please raise your hand. And online, yeah.
We don't know what.
Councillor, yeah, okay. That's 9 out of 9 councillors have indicated that they're in favour of a site visit. So thank you very much. Agenda item number 7 is P/23/0288 2 Overton Street in Dowlais, Merthyr Tydfil, CA 483AT. Exactly the same as Councillor Clive Jones. Before I ask David, to come in and give a description of the of the report. I'd like to ask for a site visit in regards to this as well. It's a 6-bedroom HMO on a small street, and the reasons I'm asking for is there was 9 letters of objection, and the street I think is 11 houses. For the reason I'm asking for the site visit is for elected members to appreciate the concerns of residents, which include the change of fabric of the area. The 6-bedroom HMO would have a detrimental effect on the area, including parking, antisocial behaviour, and concerns on how the property would be managed in relation to other properties such as D2 Propco. And also to take into consideration the objections of residents. Obviously, some of those objections aren't planning matters, so we can mention that on the day as well. So I don't know if I can someone please move the report? Am I allowed to? Yeah, I'd like planning to be there. I'm also going to ask the police to come as well. Obviously, that's not down to the council. That would be down to me as a local councillor, because there have been issues with antisocial behaviour in the area. And concerned as well, like Councillor John Thomas mentioned earlier, that the police seem to object to some and get involved in some and send in reports, but they don't seem to send in reports for everything. So I'd like to raise that as well. So can I have someone to forward the report, recommend a report? Councillor Clive Jones and Councillor David Isaac second. Yeah. Okay. Can we take the vote in again by hand, if that's okay? Okay. And Councillor Brent Carter online. Okay, that's unanimous. All councillors have voted for a site visit. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 8. These are the delegated reports for January 2024. It's an information report only. Agenda item number 9 is any other business deemed urgent by the chair. I have none. So just before I declare the meeting closed, it'd be down to Democratic Services to arrange when it's feasible for everybody to be, or as many as possible, people to be available for site visits, and taking into consideration that people have to pick grandkids up for school and working and that sort of thing as well. Okay. Councillor John Thomas.
Just one thing on that, if it's possible, can we sort of arrange between sort of 9:30 and 2 o'clock because of my school contracts, to make sure I can make, if that's possible?
We could avoid a Tuesday as well, before 2 o'clock. Avoid Tuesday.
And with that, Chair, I'll be unlikely to attend due to work commitments.
Well, the only day I work now
Is it Tuesday?
is Tuesday.
Okay, I now declare this meeting over. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, just 8 till 2.